Welcome to Barley and Me. I'm your host, Ben Rice. This is episode 84, recorded from the California Craft Beer Summit in early September. This is our second of 3 episodes recorded at the California Craft Beer Summit. This episode, we got 2 segments coming up for you. In segment 1, we've got Alex Larrabee, the brewmaster at Big Stump Brewing out of Sacramento, along with Kelly Lohrmeyer, the original sales manager at Yakima Chief Hops, who you heard about in the previous episode when Annie Johnson brought him up in a glowing review, and also Tanner Davies, the territory manager at Country Malt Group. So everybody who helps make a great beer is all in one place for that segment. It's going to be a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoy it. And then in segment 2, we have Josie Becker, the production assistant at Common Space Brewing in Los Angeles, and Rob Cartwright, the founder of DataQuencher, for all you beer nerds. Goes pretty deep into the data of beer drinkers and what they're actually looking for in a beer. A lot of surprising stuff, and as he'll tell you, it may sound surprising, but context is key when it comes to beer. I think this one's a really informative and fun episode. A lot of people that know each other and know their business, talking back and forth. Very informative, very fun. I hope you guys enjoy it. And we'll have the third of 3 episodes coming out next week with even more people that I hope you love and adore. Thank you so much for listening. Get home safe. Welcome back to Barley and Me. I'm your host, Ben Rice. Right now, we're still at the California Craft Beer Summit. We're talking to Alex Larrabee, the brewmaster at Big Stump Brewery.
Yes, sir.
We've also got with us Kelly Lohrmeyer, the regional sales manager of Yakima Chief Hops.
Woot woot.
We've also got Tanner Davies, the territory manager of Country Malt Group.
What's going on?
And this is going to be fun because I think we have a brewer.
Yes,
we have hops, we have malts. If I had a yeast person, we'd be good to go. And a water person, I suppose.
Oh, I definitely could have got us a yeast person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're the best one.
I honestly don't have another mic. This is all the mics I brought. I'm sorry.
We're full.
Well, good.
So we'll start. You know what? Let's just do it for fun. Tanny, let's tell us about yourself and about Country Malt.
So I've actually been in the brewing industry for about 15 years, or I guess alcohol beverage industry for about 15 years. Started off literally on the basement floor as a shelf stocker at a liquor store when I was in grad school. Kind of graduated up to working in restaurants and bars, worked as a bartender, door guy, started managing a bar, then got into the sales side of things and started frontline distribution, and then serendipitously ended up brewing out at Gordon Biersch in San Jose for about 5 or 6 years.
Nice.
Yeah, and then made the trip up to Portland and ended up running into Country Malt and got onto the dark side of sales and started helping out my fellow brewers with raw ingredients.
I believe we call it the roasted side of sales.
Yes.
And then, Kelly, about yourself a little bit and about your company.
So I'm Kelly. I work with Yakima Chief Hops. It's a great company. We sell a lot of cool hops that are grown by 12 growers that actually own 11. That was terrible. 11 grower owners. So we're kind of like a co-op. But like Tanner, I've been around in the beer/restaurant industry for probably about 15 years. I started at a big craft beer bar back in 2005. But earlier than that, the guy who owned that big craft beer bar kind of introduced me to beer, cheese, wine, all things spectacular. And then when he opened his craft beer bar, I was like, I want to do this. So I was like, yes, 60 handles later. I got my first craft beer rep job for a little brewery called Tallgrass, which I think they're going through some troubles right now, which kind of sucks. But Tallgrass really gave me my foot in the door as a rep. I did that for 4 years in the Midwest. Kind of just learned about how to sell beer into restaurants and liquor stores and grocery. Then I went to New Belgium, so I was lucky to get picked up by those guys. Yeah,
Nice.
Just building those relationships in the industry. I got reached out by one of their old guys and he asked me if I would come along, and I said, sure, I'll try it out. Then I decided, I'm tired of selling beer. I want to sell raw materials.
Yeah.
And so,
I want to be responsible for all the beer that I'm selling.
right? So
Yeah.
just applied with Yakima Chief. It was actually Hop Union Yakima Chief back then. But applied, got the job, and I've been with them for about 3. This is my 4th harvest, so I'm 3 years in.
Awesome.
But it's been a great journey.
Yeah. And coming from the Midwest, there's kind of an agricultural background, possibly?
My grandpa was a farmer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
so-
really how it all works. We
Right?
all stopped.
Yeah.
We all
We
saw
all
the
stopped.
family farms die.
Are you from the Midwest too?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we live on a farm, but we don't do anything with it. It's just a lawn we mow now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very mini farm.
But it used to be something. It's not anymore. We no longer care.
All about those subsidies.
Yeah. And then Alex, Big Stump Brewery, coming up on 2 years now.
Yes, sir. I guess first thing to say is I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do with my hands, but because this is a podcast, we're gonna roll with
I just need one of you to hold still near your face.
Okay.
Preferably the one with the microphone in it.
Yeah, Big Stump, 2 years, almost to the day, actually. It's been a challenging but real great period of growth for us. You know, startup's always super interesting, and you wear so many hats. Definitely on the brewer side, I'm big fans of the two people sitting across the table for me for providing super high quality ingredients. All about that. Yeah.
But do you really need them?
I need Tanner on a monthly basis. I need Tanner.
I'm very helpful.
Yeah, he's very helpful.
He turns our wonderful products into even better products, though.
There we go. I like this collab we have going on right now. But Big Stump, mostly known for our sours, I would say. We are in Midtown Sacramento, and we have a 10-barrel brew system, about 75 seats right now. So we're a brew pub. It's been a constant evolution and expansion for us, and just finding your voice in a hyper competitive market is its own personal challenge and then its own marketing challenge at the same time. But we're definitely here to stay at this point, so that's awesome.
Yeah. And speaking of being known for your sours, I'm currently drinking a sour you have on top here at the summit. What am I drinking? Because no one told me.
So you're drinking Sutter's Creek right now, Kriek.
Okay. Yeah, nice.
Which is actually we had with this one is a spontaneously fermented kettle sour that we had going on that we then racked into Chardonnay barrels, and then ultimately decided to blend in about. Ultimately, the barrel's got about 200 pounds of cherries split among all the barrels, and so you have the Chardonnay, you have the sour from the lactic fermentation. This batch picked up an ambient yeast, so we were kind of unsure actually what is this, and so we just put it in a barrel and then waited it out. But it's delicious. Yeah.
And for longtime listeners, you'll know the phrase "put it on wood" if you don't know what you're doing with it. If you're not sure what it's going to be. So when you say spontaneous fermentation, how are you guys doing that at Big Stump? I know there's a few different ways you can go about that.
We tend to not do that.
Well, yeah. I imagine so.
Accident gone right.
It was actually an accident gone right. So
There's a hole.
We've actually switched our kettle souring process, and we changed the stainless hard pipe piping. So now that when we knock out, and normally the hot liquor tank reclaims the water, but we actually knock the wort out now into the hot liquor tank and divert the hot water that is going through the chiller to a separate vessel, and then we are using the hot liquor tank as a primary fermentation vessel for our lactobacillus fermentations now, because it allows us to create an anaerobic environment, whereas our kettle had a vent before, and that's where we picked up that it was a literal Sacramento ambient yeast. This is a true lambic style beer, and so this is yeast that came down our stack and fermented this out completely. I was blown away by it.
And I just want to point out that there's a band from Sacramento called Giant Squid that had a great EP called Monsters in the Creek, which was based around the Sutter's Creek idea. So we're just going to tie everything together. We're going to do music, beer, hops, barley, fucking everything. Just get it all into the one quick talk.
Oh, yeah.
Promotion. That EP is no longer available, so sorry for bringing it up.
But can you find it on the YouTube?
Oh, I'm sure you can.
Well,
almost.
I'll have to check it out.
Almost. It's great. I fucking love it. They're a metal band, and that one was like, I think their vocalist got sick, and they had their keyboardist take over, so they rewrote all their songs to be more keyboard driven than metal driven, and it's super good.
That's what happens when you lose an important part of your process. Someone just comes and is like, nope, this is how it's going to be now.
Just gonna fucking figure it out. Yeah.
Always adapting. I have nothing else. You guys have to bring everything up now.
Tanner, how do you feel your swag game is these days?
I mean, actually, we do have some really cool stuff. I did swing by your brewery last night. Had a wonderful Imperial Stout, if I remember right.
My brewer thanks you for the socks as well.
I did hear the socks got stolen. But no, it's really fun working with all the brewers, definitely here in California. Seeing a bunch of the stuff that they're doing with our wonderful products. It really is a collaborative effort to see, the stuff that we take a lot of pride in, just gets transformed even into bigger and better stuff. I know a lot of our team and a lot of our maltsters love to see our brewers win awards and that, because we take just as much pride in our stuff. So it's almost like a win for us when we see different brewers win different awards that use our malt. It's definitely a sense of pride within us, I know, in the malting industry. And I'm sure even in the hop industry, it's pretty similar. When you see it really is that collaborative effort.
Yeah, I think, on the hop side, the exciting part is we have so many experimental things going on right now, and we've talked a little bit about that, but with the sour beer, we have the American Noble, which is like the lower alpha, so it's like kind of a cool new product, and like since you did spontaneous yeast, it'd be really interesting to see how that could play into your portfolio.
Yeah, I think the challenge is to not be stagnant,
right?
Both on the supplier side and on the production side is like, because you have a certain set of processes that work, but that's not always what's best or what's right, and you always need to be continually evolving and refining those processes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why like we want to have that relationship be like open, and so I'm glad you guys can banter and have like the funness, because that
I'm great at banter.
Well, it's different because like the brewing process hasn't really changed in hundreds of years. So all this innovation, all this innovation comes from the brewer side, or even new hop varieties or different malting techniques. So all this innovation that we see in the industry right now is all collaborative from the brewing side, malting side, new hops, hop farmers out there trying new stuff. It's an interesting time to be in the brewing industry right now, for sure.
Yeah, it's extremely exciting.
On our side, I mean, it's, I guess if you want to have a corollary towards winemaking, we try to take, I guess, a non-interventionist stance, where it's like we want to let the raw product quality, whether that's the hops and the malt working in concert, express itself, and just have that be a clean expression of what we're trying to do. And so, that's always I think in brewing, the art is the ingredient selection. How is this all going to work together, and what do I think this final taste is going to be? But the science is the actual fermentation science, right? And so when you have those two things working in concert, that's when you can really start to blow up.
Yeah. Well, it's always fun. I'd like to tease some of my winemaking friends, because, they can change their product every year, and they just say, oh, Cabernet Sauvignon 2012. Oh, it's different next year, 2013. Brewers, we kind of have to make the same product, consistent, even though, hops change. Sometimes the malt specs change. There's a whole bunch of variability from your vendors that we do try and manage, but, brewers really have to know the science in that to make the product. If you're going to make a consistent product year after year, it really takes a special talent. So
you're piquing my interest now, actually. How does that come through in the malting process, like for you guys, or on the supplier side? Like what are those best practices?
I mean, we have a great team of maltsters within our company. I mean, you can have different protein levels come into our elevator systems, different size, different just conditions throughout the year. If it's a colder year or if it's humid, when they're malting, we actually have to change the way that we're malting, open up different louvers, different temperatures, because we want to make sure that malting happens, consistently. I mean, we do want to give you a consistent product, but we do remove some of that consistency as it's coming off the field. Mm-hmm. So, we're trying to make sure we're blending stuff appropriately with different protein levels and that, so you guys get a consistent product to work with.
It's like it's an agricultural product with slight year-to-year variations or something like that. I don't know.
With like environmental changes making effects on the product. It's a whole thing.
I'm on fire.
We hope you're not on fire.
I know. I'm channeling Ricky Bobby for some reason today. Yeah, whatever. Still not sure what to do with my hands.
But that's a really good point. Like, to make the consistency of a product,
we're not
like
everything's in your control.
And it's the expectation of the consumers that stuff is consistent, right? Yeah.
And I think we're in such a really cool atmosphere with the beer industry that like now people are like, well, if it is different, they don't care as much. Or in the past, it seemed like it was like you had to have your core, you had to have, everything had to be la la la, which you still want that consistency of quality. But now you have the opportunity to just really experiment.
I would say our most sensitive palates in our tap room, we changed the malt bill 5%. I don't like it now.
Serious? Wow.
You know who the super tasters are immediately. Yeah.
But do they say it's not good, or it's just not what they were
different.
like?
I
just
wanted
different.
this. This is not this now. So Yeah.
I think that's the beautiful part about beer is like if you are going to change the recipe at some point, kind of flagships have kind of gone by the wayside where it's kind of more of a seasonal all year round thing. So you can be like, this is our 2017 edition of this. So they understand the hop profile may have changed. The malt profile may have changed. It's like, oh, this is exciting. What is it like? They can compare to last year as opposed to insisting it's like last year.
Well, I think you're touching on something super deep, whereas brands...
That's me.
Brands are now
That's
a
hella deep with your
proxy
hands.
for quality.
Hella deep.
And whereas before, like, okay, you had Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, and if you're drinking Sierra Nevada, you're always getting the Pale Ale. That's their flagship. Now it's like, for my company, Big Stump is the brand, but people always want something new. And so the brand kind of becomes the proxy for quality, but you can't have a flagship beer anymore because people, the market is so saturated. People always want to have something interesting on their palate, something different. And I mean, it's very challenging on the brewer side because it's like we have to come up with a million combinations in competition with everyone else. Where, you know, these two people sitting across from me, they just collect their paychecks and sell me their wares. Yeah.
Not true. Not true.
Not true.
We also have to have that
that
difference.
Excuse me, as an interviewer, checking for accuracy of statements.
Thank you.
I'd like the second side of this opinion, where you guys just collect paychecks. Is this correct?
The brewers just collect the paychecks. Lazy bums.
I also
We
know
all know
that's
that's
not
not
true either, having done that for many years.
I mean, I collect a paycheck, thank God. But
Yeah, exactly.
You know, this is all on the fly, so maybe those words were, understand what
well,
I mean.
but most of our job is education to brewers
that'd be right.
in order
What's
to
available? What's changed?
what's available, what's changing. How can we be a good conduit to you making all these crazy new beers and really being knowledgeable of that? And I think YCH, we're really lucky. We are direct with our farmers. So this year, if you look at our crop report, you can see what we changed in our fields to mimic what you guys are needing. So like just being that close to things like that and kind of knowing that. And that's why we work with Country Malt is really closely is we want to know what you guys need. And that's like our biggest goal is just like figure out the needs of the companies and make sure that we're providing.
How are you best meeting the needs of brewers these days, right? Yeah.
I mean, like I said, what we're trying to do is the same thing is bring some stuff out to the market that we're having brewers ask us for. I mean, recently over the past couple of years, we've been having a high demand for lighter color Pilsner malts. I mean, everyone's going with a lot of the hazy IPAs, some of the kettle stuff. You just don't want some of those big malty flavors. You want really light notes, especially to express a lot of the hops that are out there. I mean, there's no need to spend a whole bunch of money on really expensive hops and then cover it up with, caramely malt notes. So we've seen a lot of maltsters start providing these really light, crisp Pilsner malts. So that's one of the things that we see where brewers are telling us, hey, this is what we're looking for. This is what we want. We go back to our suppliers, our maltsters, and say, hey, this is what's going on. So it is that kind of flow of information from brewer to producer. And, that's one of the main things I see. And I know that happens the same way with hops, too.
Yeah, absolutely. I've noticed a lot of kind of pullback on that caramel malt in like the profiles for people, like even color profiles, flavor profiles, all that stuff. And is it kind of up to you to like educate your brewers on what's available and like your knowledge of that and like how trends are changing? Do you do that at all? Like reach out to them like,
I have one more crystal malt IPA, I'm going to throw up all over this table.
I'm going to tell you something right now. Crystal malt will never go away, and IPA will never go away. You got to fucking deal with that.
You just don't have to drink it, though.
Yeah. Vote with my dollars. Vote with my
Everyone has a
dollars.
different flavor palette.
As much as New Zealand keeps trying to butt in, Yakima Gold ain't going away either.
Yakima Gold. I don't think I've had a beer made with that.
I refer to it as a catch-all.
Oh, okay.
But I know it's anyway.
Fair
Yeah,
enough.
I wouldn't say that I'm educating brewers on the new trends. I mean, usually they're educating us on the new trends. I mean, it blew me away how the brew IPA craze, especially in this area, just kind of took off very organically. And, just we started having people reach out to us saying, hey, I want to do this style. And, I know it seems very cyclical. I know every year seems to have a new trend or something like, I think 2-3 years ago it was Radlers, and before that you had the Cascadian Dark Ales.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if this is going to be what it is, but, every once in a while you see these new things, and that's what brewers tell us, and we try and adapt to them. The brewing industry right now is so nimble that, we try and help them out with that.
Yeah, we try to be as nimble as we can with raw ingredients. Like, they're an agricultural product, but
that's
we
the thing,
do have that conduit to be able to.
With hops,
sure.
I mean, to produce a new hop varietal, it takes 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
So, when you have brewers saying, oh, hey, we want more citrusy notes. I mean, these are things that they were telling us 10 years ago that we're, trying to bring to market.
And they're like, oh, we don't actually want that anymore. Now that it's here, no,
Market's
it's
changed, baby.
like, nope, I'm sorry, you got to blend 5 different hops to figure out how to get that profile out. Balance them out until you get what you want.
Yeah. Well, I think with the brutes and the hazies, I mean, IPA has always been the number one
Always.
So it's cool to see the fractions of that start to happen. And some people are doing them really, really well. And the hops and the malt that we can provide to make people experiment, it's so exciting.
Well,
so exciting.
I also think it's interesting. I mean, the brutes and the hazies, I feel really the brute IPAs are a brewery-driven style. Like, brewers are interested in the glucoamylase enzyme and what that means for their program and fermentation profiles. But, hazy IPAs are a customer-driven style. We have a brute IPA on tap. We have very few people come in and go, oh, what's your brute? But first question, 9 times out of 10 is, what are your hazies when someone's coming in our tap room? And so it's really interesting because it has been really pushed from a production side, but I'm not sure that style has the oomph to kind of make it beyond a regional specialty kind of level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I wish, because it's taking, to me, I'm a West Coast girl.
Yeah.
And the brute kind of takes the hazy mouthfeel-esque
Chunkiness.
Yeah,
but gives that West Coast
gives that West Coast cleanness.
Yeah.
But it's still really fruity and forward.
How would you feel about a hazy brute?
I probably would drink one.
Yeah.
And see if I liked it.
Yeah. And do you think that the haze craze kind of came out of that 10-year cycle of, I want citrusy stuff, I want more fruity notes and that, and now that it's here, we can go crazy with it, make it real juicy.
Yep.
Do you think that kind of was side by side?
Well, I feel like we've always seen the alcohol industry go to super sugar, and then it falls off. And I feel like now beer is at that. I mean, hazes are super sugary to me.
I mean, I had a 17% stout today.
Yeah, and the pastry stouts. I mean, it's
pastry
the same.
stouts.
Oh my God, just
the
throw a
milkshake
fucking
IPAs
chocolate
and
cake
that are
in
out
it.
there. Yeah.
I think it's just the progression of alcohol in general. It's how it goes. You watch Zima, you watch the Bartles and James, root beer, all this. Yeah. Now we're at a hazy IPA, best style of beer.
Speaking of Bartles and James, how did you guys all get into alcohol? Because I used to have that.
You're reminding me of high school.
Yeah,
I drank.
When I was like
Lake of the Ozarks.
When I was 10, that's what I'd have with dinner once a month. My mom would be like, "You can have a little bit of this Bartles and James."
Right.
How'd you guys get involved in the beer/alcohol industry? What got your flames fired up?
I mean, I know for me, I'll say I didn't have my first drink until I was 21. Right.
Classy. A lot of people have announced 14, but that's fine. You can do what you want to do.
I'm going to try and...
I've never actually had a drink.
Right. Yeah, I'm a brewer.
On
I've never had a
record.
drink.
Give or take.
I'm the worst brewer ever.
No, so I grew up in Colorado, so I was actually exposed to craft beer relatively young, and just really enjoyed that style, and started going out to craft beer bars at a relatively young age, and actually fell in love with more malty forward beers. So porter is one of my favorite styles of beer out there. Then I getting into other parts of the industry and ending up at a German style brewery. I was always very malt focused. I actually wasn't an IPA fan until I started my position here with Country Malt and started selling hops, and was like, oh man, I should really learn a little bit more about this and the flavor profiles. And, it actually is a style that I enjoy and appreciate now.
These hop commissions are bonkers.
And I think if we went around the table, I feel like a lot of people would be, when you get into beer, a more malt-forward beginning. Would that be accurate for you at all?
I mean, Sam Smith, Taddy Porter was one of my first go-tos.
Yes.
Yeah,
yep.
I was in college in Lawrence, Kansas.
Nice.
I was doing my thing. I wanted to be a bartender as soon as I turned 21 because I had worked as a waitress.
I was going to say, didn't we all want to do that?
Yeah. I got my bartending job, then I worked at the local tavern all through college, and just started loving beer. He had 12 taps probably. We had Boddington's, Guinness, Bass, very classic European beers. That just started there, and then
I don't think I've really met many people that dove into beer. I'm going to get into beer. Hops. I don't think that's really where people start.
Yeah. The hops kind of came from my sales background in the beer and like realizing that like, hey, people don't know what raw ingredients are. And like, how could I get into that part of the industry? Because it's a small industry.
Yeah.
And just knowing about the company I work for and seeing a job opening and going for it. I mean, I'm not a profestional brewer, but I got it.
You drank beer. You saw what hops
beer.
are.
It's okay. I am.
I think it was just like a luck. It was me paying attention. And I think paying attention is something that more people need to do.
Yeah.
So
Wait,
I
what
paid
did you say?
attention.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Paying attention to what was going on the top of the industry and like how I could be a part
absolutely.
of that because I really enjoy educating people. And when I worked for New Belgium, we did educational programs on, the protect our winters and all the stuff that they do. I'm not even thinking like their reclaimed water and their, the balls outside at Fort Collins, the methane balls. You know the methane balls?
I always leave my balls outside if I can. Yeah.
But they really taught me like
You need to air out.
how, that like it's important. There's all sorts of facets of this industry, so it's good to be over here.
And Alex, your beer history real quick because I know you're going to go.
I'm the classic home brewer long shot kind of thing. Yeah, classic. No, nice. Yeah. No, super difficult. No. But no, I mean, my background was homebrewing was a hobby for a long time, and then 2014 won Best of Show for a Hefeweizen for homebrew at the state fair, and then there's a million homebrewers with a dream out there, but you gotta have something to hang your hat on, and that it all kind of. Joke's actually on my wife because she said, "Oh, you think you can do this? Well, you better go win some awards." And then when I did, she couldn't say no. Yeah, so that is the classic story.
All right, so
hey, babe.
Alex, you have to leave. So
Yes,
let's
sir.
do a quick rundown. Where can people find you guys online if they have more interest in what you guys are doing?
BigStumpBrewCo.com. We're 1716 L Street, right in Midtown. Sacramento, heart of Midtown. Definitely taproom is the best way to experience what we're doing. We have 15 to 20 taps going at any time. Always about 5 rotating sours, 5 IPAs, 5 Belgians, and 5 grab bag, which can be anything.
That's
so
nice.
Definitely come check us out. It's delicious.
I was there last night. I can attest to that.
I can attest Tanner was there last night as well.
You saw the security cam footage, didn't you?
No comment.
And Tanner, where can people find out more about Country Gold?
Country Malt Group would be at countrymalt.com. And like I said, I cover Northern California, Oregon, and Hawaii, so you can always reach out directly to me if you have questions about our stuff, or the rest of our team is also awesome. So, feel free to reach out.
And Kelly with Yakima Chief Hops, where can people find out more about you guys?
You can also go to the interwebs, yakimachief.com, or expanding your business creatively with, just kidding, or Yakima Chief Ranches, who's our breeder. They have some really good information if you want to get to know more about hops.
I don't imagine hops as being bred, but okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
hops are
actually it
bred.
is.
Yeah, they're rhizomes. We cross them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's pretty rad.
Yeah.
So Yakima Chief Hops is where you can buy spot hops or talk to one of your sales reps. Yakima Chief Ranches is where you can find out about how hops grow, which I think is probably one of the most important things that you can learn about beer.
Yeah. And how much time it takes? So much time.
The time and just the general agronomics, I always call them agronomics of hops and like how they grow, what we do to make sure the hops are clean. Because you're putting a dry hop in a beer that's already been sanitized.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that hop is clean. So it's a really important part of our program.
All right. Awesome. I think that's all we're going to do. You guys ready to leave?
Thank you.
I'm ready for another beer.
Ben, thanks for having us
Thank
out.
you so
This
much.
was
Yeah,
awesome.
thank you so
Tanner
much.
Davies from Country Malt Group, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Kelly Lohrmeyer from Yakima Chief Hops, and already gone, Alex Larrabee from Big Stump Brewing. Thank you so much.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Hey, you. Do you love craft beer? Do you love craft beer brewed and bottled here in Northern California? Well, if you do, we got a magazine for you. ABV Magazine is the only local print publication covering Northern California's amazing craft beer and spirits community. Each issue features behind-the-bottle conversations, reviews, booze-based destinations, and a comprehensive guide to breweries, taprooms, bottle shops, and distilleries in Northern California. You can sign up for only $1 a month and have each issue delivered right to your front door. Check it out. at abvmagazine.com. And from all of us here at ABV Magazine, cheers and thanks for supporting local craft beer. That's abvmagazine.com, alcohol by volume.
Welcome back to Barley and Me. It's the host, Ben Rice, talking again. We're here still at the California Craft Beer Summit 2018. I'm here today with Josie Becker, the production assistant at Common Space Brewery.
Hi, everybody.
And that's in Hawthorne, California, correct?
Yes, that is. We are a pretty much brand spanking new brewery in Hawthorne, California, right by LAX. We're the second brewery in Hawthorne, and probably the fourth or fifth in the greater LAX region. It's been kind of a fun, exploding area in the craft beer scene down in SoCal, and we're starting to make some really good beer, so it's really cool.
Excellent. We also have with us today Rob Cartwright, the founder of DataQuencher.
Hello.
So tell me a little about DataQuencher.
Sure. So DataQuencher is a market research firm that's exclusively focused on the craft brewing industry. So we survey about 10,000 beer drinkers a year across the country just to find out what they think about the beers, the brands, and the business of craft brewing.
Yeah. And so what has your research found as far as things that you're looking at that are people don't expect to see in beer?
Okay. Wow. Lots of things. So we just did
Give me all of it.
All of it. Okay. All right. Well, we only have 10 minutes, so no. Some of the things that have been a little surprising. We did an analysis of, when the Brewer Association listed their came out with the production numbers this summer. A lot of big breweries were flat or even a little bit of a decline. We wondered if the customers of those breweries were different than customers of breweries that were seeing growth in production.
Oh, really?
So we just, and we've got so many surveys. We've got this huge database, so we're able to really go in there and kind of mine it. And it turns out they are different. The biggest surprise was customers of breweries that are growing right now. Those customers are less likely to buy IPAs and pale ales than the regular craft beer drinker. They still drink them. They're still drinking plenty of them. But they're not drinking them at the same level as the overall market.
The habituals.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's sort of like, it seems to run a little counter. You think, oh, well, so many places, they're pale or their IPAs, they're flagship. And what we're seeing is for the ones that are growing, their customers are actually starting to go off in different directions.
Is there a specific type of beer that they're aiming for?
So they did over-index, okay, wonky term. But yeah, they over-indexed on wheat and lagers and on some of the Belgian styles. So it's almost this kind of, you could say it's the early signs of a pendulum kind of swinging back a little bit from the, the hop bombs that we got used to just some more traditional, styles.
Well, because I think also as breweries grow, they have to bring in new beer drinkers, people that don't usually drink beer, and they're more familiar with the fruity flavor of a Belgian. They're more familiar with the lager taste of a Budweiser. They're looking for something that's comparable to things they already know. Because the more I talk to people that drink beer and get into beer, the last thing they get into is hops.
Yeah, and I would say just, as a new brewery, as a brewery that's, growing month to month, really, we've already kind of noticed that we do get a lot of, because beer is local, especially in the craft beer market.
Oh, for sure. Beer
is so local. So it's not just, we have to appeal to craft beer drinkers, but we have to appeal to craft beer drinkers in the LAX area. So we made what we call the Mexican lager, and it was like an adjunct lager. We had rice in the grain bill.
Oh, yeah.
And it drank really dry, and it was a great seller. And we released it, in time for the World Cup. And we have a big screen at the brewery. So we were showing all the early games, had these great crowds. And a lot of drinkers are like, Pacifico is my go-to, but this is so much better. And you kind of introduce a new clientele to the to craft beer. We're also down the street from SpaceX. So they come in after their shifts. And there's a lot of women at SpaceX that have come in, and their favorite beers are our saisons. We do a Belgian wheat beer, and just it's a different section of the craft beer market that I feel sometimes has been ignored in sort of the pursuit of hops over everything, that are kind of looking for a voice and finding that in some of these breweries that are starting out.
Yeah. And I don't know if you're seeing this in your data, Rob, but I think that the rice beer is kind of coming back in the craft side. There's a lot of people making beers with rice, bringing back the 40, the like malt liquor type beer. That's coming back.
Everything old is new again, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. 30-year cycles. Everybody knows it. We're all going through it.
Yeah, and we outside of the Mexican lager, we also did a jasmine rice saison, which again has a really nice, easy rice body to it. And we have done an all rice lager in a collaboration with Almanac in Alameda, kind of experimenting with doing like a Japanese style lager. And there's this experimenting in the malt bill over experimenting with the hops. I think is a fun way. For a new brewery that can't afford to go out and maybe get like the latest and greatest hops, like you can experiment with things in your malt, that it can be kind of fun.
Yeah, because as hop shortages happen, you kind of have to focus on what can you control that's outside your realm of what you can obtain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love hearing what you just described because you're so lucky to live out here. I'm based out of Indiana.
Uh-huh.
Great state. Hey. But, we don't have the critical mass of brewers and breweries that you guys have here, where the innovation you're talking about there, just that's not going to happen for another few years. We're getting there. We're building up. More breweries are opening and things. But I mean, Mexican lager just hit us.
Uh-huh.
We're a little bit behind. So, to hear all these different things that you're kind of because of proximity to all these other brewers, things you're able to do and collab projects and stuff. That's just my inner beer geek gets really excited hearing about that. So,
yeah, no, I mean. My experience so far in the craft beer community is that it's very collaborative. As far like on every level, like we're having an issue, perhaps in the process, you can email other brewmasters and ask like, "Hey, have you had this issue? How did you fix this issue?" If you borrow a cup of sugar, but obviously like borrow a cup of hops because you're a little short on a recipe. Like everyone's kind of working together. This craft beer conference, getting the stuff up here when we're all down in Los Angeles, like we all pulled together to kind of ship things up here and get things ready. And then now seeing like a lot of people that I know from the LA beer industry, like up here being a part of the conference, it's special. It's a greater community than just a few people trying to make some beer in a warehouse.
So at Common Space, what are you guys doing as far as the market analysis type things and like what you're doing to make sure your customers are happy, but also you're happy, content, making beers that you are passionate about?
Yeah, we're so new that a lot of it is trial and error.
Oh yeah.
And we have done some lime lagers, just because of like, oh hey, this lager is not exactly maybe where we wanted it, so let's like turn it around and see how else, and having the response to that be like, wow, this is really great. Okay, so that's something new that we can kind of push at. And as far as like knowing who our customers are, like it's just who's kind of it's so much is out of the tap room. You can just look out and like, okay, these are our people. It's just kind of seeing who responds to what we're doing kind of can dictate what we end up doing in the future. And we're so new that experimentation is a big part of the process.
Given what LA is in general, if people view it, is there a specific market that you're trying to avoid or target when you created Common Space? Was there like a market you were aiming for and one you were trying to like not really meet?
I think in this industry, you can't really decide, we don't want to go after a certain market. You kind of have to be able to have something for everyone. And even if you don't, succeed the first time out, like learning from the mistakes and trying to, have something for everyone, I think can be really valuable. We've done a hazy, we've done like really big IPAs, but we're also like, we love sessionable beers. And so that's a big part of our profile. I don't believe, I've been asked before, like, how do you kind of go after those different demographics that aren't drinking? Like, we'll just make great beer, and then they'll want to drink it because great beer is wonderful and people will love to have it. And it's, I've had people that are wine drinkers come in and like, I don't really like beer. Like, well, how about we've got a honey saison? That's, that's close to something you might be associating with the wine experience. I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea beer could be that. Like, well, there's so many things that beer is more than just the normal light lager.
Yeah, because I think over the years, the idea that great beer and familiar beer are different has gone away. People thought, oh, it's a familiar beer, it can't be that good. But now I think people have come around to the fact that you can be great and familiar at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a really well-crafted lager is just fantastic. You know, you get one, it's like, wow, this is something special here. You know, when you have one of those. Here you describe, kind of having, the wine drinker come in and, saying, well, we don't have wine, but we can help you with, this style or that style. Reminds me, we were doing a project with a brewery down in Texas, and one of the things we learned is their customers way over-index, there's that word again, on brown.
Really?
Yeah.
In Texas?
Yeah. And these guys don't have one, and they didn't want to make one. Like,
why would you?
They're like, it's not on our brand. It's not, it's just not our thing.
It's thick, it's chewy, and it's hot out.
Right.
Why would anybody want this?
Apparently they're buying it. So
it's completely against what you would think.
Right. So, but they still didn't want to. But they're like, but that's not us. We don't want to make one. So it's like, well, okay, but your customers,
are clamoring.
They're clamoring, and they're buying it. They're buying it elsewhere. Mm-hmm. So what we did is we actually sat down, and we did this analysis of just people that buy in Texas who buy brown ales. What else do they drink? And it turned out they also I can't quit saying that word, over-indexed on cider. So it was like, oh. And these guys were like, oh, well, we could have a cider. That's within our our brand identity and whatnot. And so it was kind of a circuitous way to get around to having something for everybody. So when that person comes in who doesn't care for a lager or a pale ale or a sour, they can solve something.
Well, and I think that gets into the importance of having a diverse team. I feel like so many of those, this is not on our brand. Having only one person that can really, say what the brand is, I think can be limiting. Having women on staff, having minorities on staff that can say, well, like, actually, outside of this narrow vision of what a brand can be, like, there's so many other things that people are interested in. And, you don't want to write that recipe, fine, I'll write that recipe. Like, I'll make that wort, because this is something that I believe in. I'm just a production assistant at Common Space. I mostly keg, but I did get to write a recipe at Common Space. I wrote a recipe for a Belgian wheat beer with blood orange and coriander, and we submitted it to the California State Fair, and it won us our first gold medal. Medal, period.
Wow.
Nice. And, I would not have been able to, successfully make that without the help of our amazing director of beer operations and our assistant brewer, but because they allowed me to have a voice, we won a gold medal. So seeing outside of one singular vision, I think, is super important for breweries that want to understand beer drinkers outside of the ones that look like themselves.
I have a question. Did anything about you change when that gold came through?
All
the confidence,
all the ranges of emotions, like the confidence, the imposter syndrome, the it just kind of really made me understand one, that when you believe in something, stand up for that, and also it's good to know what you don't know, but also you probably know more than you think you know. And just kind of allowing yourself to, I'll throw this, maybe it won't work, but I got to try, can sometimes produce great results.
Well, and you mentioned a minute ago the, kind of having those different voices and different viewpoints, kind of frees you up to do more things than if it's just kind of a singular, focus. And that's obviously something that's getting a lot of discussion these days, with the diversity ambassador for the Brewer Association, and, and this ties all back to a survey we recently did. We asked beer drinkers, how important is diversity in, just in general too. I mean, we asked it several different ways, but
yeah, because you have to.
Yeah, you wouldn't.
You can't be direct. They're going to have a weird.
Do you
answer.
like diversity? Sure. It's like we asked about the environment. Do you like the environment? Yeah. All right. No, we ask it a few different ways to kind of suss out what's really going on there. But at the end of the day, I mean, 2/3 of craft beer drinkers consider it very important. And that 2/3 really matters because they're actually spending more money drinking more often than the regular craft beer drinker. They're, I think it was 80% of them, if I got that number right, 80% have visited at least 2 tap rooms in the past year. So, I mean, that I think is kind of a call out to everybody in the industry. It's like, what's the environment? What's your conversation? What is the environment in your tap room? How welcoming is it? What messages are you sending? Intentional, unintentional?
When they walk through the door.
Yeah, it's like you really do need to audit it and go through everything and see, what are we saying here?
It's hugely important, especially in the LA market, because I mean, LA is a city. It's a plurality city. Like there is no majority culture, and we're opening up breweries and old warehouses in neighborhoods that have transitioned from many different cultures over the years. And when I go to a brewery in East LA, or when I go to a brewery down in Long Beach, like walking in and seeing like a Latina assistant female brewer, like that's awesome to me. That's really like reaffirming, like, okay, no, the community is also involved in this. This is not someone else's project. This is part of that community, and it's just really it's reaffirming that beer is for everyone, and I think that's an important message.
And I think that's really wrapped up in your name, the common space. It is for everyone. It's a place for everyone to come together and drink beer.
That was super important. It's in our name. It's in our logo. We've got the
it's in your beer styles.
The 2 rings. It's in the beer styles. That this isn't an exclusive community, and there shouldn't be any gatekeeping for beer. It should be just common. It brings people together.
Yeah, beer's for everybody.
Beer's for everybody.
Yeah. And then I like your guys' name a whole lot because it is that very inviting, wide open name. And then I also like DataQuencher because it's kind of a misnomer. People are like, I'm going to be satiated by the data you're going to give me. But mostly it's like, bad news about what you have. Your beliefs are all wrong. But I'm going to correct them and how to get past that.
We find some things are some people's views. We enjoy surprising our clients. Sometimes. I mean, sometimes you're just affirming what they already know. Some things are pretty obvious, but sometimes you get that little nugget of information where you're like, wait a minute. You start digging in on it more and more, and you come up with something. You're like, wow, I wouldn't have expected that.
Yeah.
For example, here in California, we just in our most recent wave of surveys, it was the first time we ever asked about politics, and all we said was, do you identify as liberal, moderate, conservative, basically. 1 out of 3 identified as somewhat or very conservative of craft beer drinkers. That's actually a high, so about 32%, 33%. In the state, it's only about 27% identify as conservative, meaning that a craft beer drinker is actually more likely. This just really surprised me. It just, as an outsider, it's like, wait a minute. They're actually more likely to identify as conservative than the general population.
Yeah.
Yeah, do with that what you will. But,
yeah, it's kind of a weird dichotomy. Like, I also do stand-up, and, like, when I'm out there talking to my comedian friends, we're all progressive, liberal as fuck people.
Right.
And then you go to a show, and you're performing for this audience that, honestly, overwhelmingly is not. It's a pretty conservative. Comedy goers are generally pretty conservative. And so you're trying to find a connection where it's clear that you and the group that's watching you don't really agree, and finding that common ground is like, it's kind of a miracle, but also like we're also all humans.
Right.
We all like need a release, and it's just kind of a weird thing to observe.
Well, and beer can be that common ground, right?
No, absolutely. Like, I think that's
we also
part
use
of our
beer to
whole
make sure
mission.
we all agree. The drunker they are, the easier it is.
Yeah. And I don't know. I before I was in the beer industry, like I was a sports journalist. I find data to be so crucial in understanding a subject. I feel like it's one of those things. The great Vin Scully has said that statistics are like a lamppost. They're great for holding up a drunk. That it can hold up a really flimsy argument, but also at the same time, like, they are a rock that if you actually can, like, really see what's going on, like, they can really help you understand, like, getting into the data versus just like, well, this is the data and this proves that no one likes style X. Like, no, that's not what the data is saying. But I think data can help us understand beer culture in general if you kind of pay attention to it in the way that you're doing, and I think that's really awesome.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, and I love that quote. I had a boss. I used to work at
I
Coca-Cola,
flubbed it,
and
it's
it can support. It's a lamppost because it can support a drunk, but it can also illuminate. So it can support a bad idea, but it can also illuminate new ideas. Yeah, I'm flubbing it up too, but whatever. We all know what we're trying to say.
Somebody Google it. I'm not going to be the one. Listeners out there, Google it. But yeah, before we go, where can people find you guys if they want to find out more information online or whatever the case may be?
Yeah, so DataQuencher.com is our website, and we're on the lovely world of beer Twitter at DataQuencher. So those are the two best ways to learn more about what we're doing.
You can find our all of our information at commonspace.la, and you can find me on the old Twitter or the Instagram as Hoppy Josie.
Nice. All right, so Josie Becker from Common Space Brewery, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Rob Cartwright from DataQuencher, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, get out of here. You did great.